Welcome back to episode deuce of the Shaman's Corner. Now, today we're going to be talking about 2 ways to make yourself more of a happy person. Now, I know people like Jordan Peterson and other influencers online have spoken about the fact that life is not necessarily about being happy and that it's not a good idea to chase an intangible concept, which I somewhat agree with. However, I do believe that we can use our minds to create a more happy environment for ourselves. And essentially, if we treat happiness as a psychological concept, then we can take steps to do that. So here are 2 ways to make yourself more of a happy person based on the principles of psychology and sociology. So, method number 1 is the happiness formula. This comes from a psychologist who is known as the father of positive psychology, Martin Seligman. The happiness formula is a formula that is calculating how happy you are. And what it pertains to is happiness equals your set point, which is your basis, your genetic basis, plus your circumstances, plus your voluntary activities equals the extent of your happiness. Now, I'm going to be focusing on set point here because we all know that circumstances can change either by our own will or the will of others or just natural occurrences. And voluntary activities are pretty self explanatory. Set point also makes up 50% of what Seligman believes makes you happy overall. So I think it's a worthy thing to focus on. So the set point is the part of your happiness that is determined by your genes. It's the part of your happiness that you can't control, which is a key element. And circumstances, again, are the things that happen in your life, while voluntary activities are things that you do in your life. Now, with set point, Seligman did speak about improving your set point. And the way I interpret this is that we essentially can control how we feel about things or how we react to things, but not how things happen, because things just happen. And this brings me to the point of some of the early Stoic philosophers of the early Roman and Greek traditions in the Stoic philosophies that they believed in. And some of these are interesting. So the great emperor Marcus Aurelius said that you have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Later on, Viktor Frankl, who was one of the pioneers of existentialist philosophy, said that everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Interestingly, so essentially what these Stoic philosophers are saying that in regards to the set point, which is your genes, and Friedrich Nietzsche said it as well when he said that amor fati, which is love your fate, which is that you can control how you react to things. You can control how you feel about yourself. You can control how grateful you are for your life, for your things that have happened to you, even your genetic dispositions or your genetic starting points. And that determines 50% of your happiness. So just off the bat, the belief and the practice of having control over your own reaction to things as opposed to being a complainer or constantly whining about things, having control over your reaction to things as opposed to just worrying about things is going to make you more of a happy person. So that's the happiness formula, and that's your set point. But in relation to the rest of the formula, because remember, it's happiness equals your set point plus your circumstances plus voluntary action. In regards to the rest of the formula, if you want to be happier, you can focus on increasing your set point, which to me, I interpret that as choosing how you react to things, and also improving your circumstances and doing more voluntary activities that make you happy. And that's the simple happy formula. Second point I wanted to mention is from my book, Evolving Horizons, which will be launched next week. And it's known as what I've called loop hypothesis, which is essentially a hypothesis that says that we are born with certain genetic dispositions, we have certain genes, and then we are conditioned by society, by our parents, by the media we consume, especially today. And interestingly, that's shifting now with generative AI. We are conditioned from a young age, and then we take those conditions and we actually build our own perceptions and behaviors that reinforce those conditions. And so we create a loop in our lives that we ourselves constantly perpetrate and reinforce. And in order to make changes and become essentially more happy, you will sometimes need to break your loop or break the patterns that are affecting you. So there's many ways that you can look at doing this. Some of the ways I've suggested in my book are meditation, which is something that was originally only a Vedic traditional spiritual practice, but is now gaining traction in the scientific community with tens of thousands of studies looking at the benefits of meditation at this current time. Something else I mentioned in my book is also psychedelic hallucinogens, some of which are now in stage 3 clinical trials with some of the leading universities in the world, and also other things like forming new habits. I've delved into this more in my book, and you can pick up a copy and have a read for yourself and see a little bit more about how your loops are functioning and what guides your loops, and how you can use some other depth therapy methods to break the loops. So those are a few ways that you can think about your own mind and how you can look at your own thought process. And I think they both tie into the same theme, which is that our thoughts create our reality, and sometimes our thought processes are working against us, and there are step methods to actually change the way you think. And once you do that, you will change the way you feel. Finally, I will say, maybe as um, a third element, is that we sometimes create our own suffering in life. We tend to not accept circumstances for what they are. And I think radical acceptance of the truth of the matter of things can actually help people to become more happy, as opposed to constantly trying to change everything. Sometimes it's good to just accept things and let go. Once you do that, you will begin to relieve some of the stress, because we do in life create some of our own struggles in our own mind and punish ourselves, essentially. So those are a couple of methods that I've picked up on. Hope that was helpful for you, and I'll see you on the next episode of Shaman's Corner. Take care. Peace.